It was January that we learned about a memo coming from the FBI. The increasingly observed interest of racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, those are RMVEs, in radical traditionalist Catholic ideology. Now we've learned through a new letter sent by Chairman Jordan of the House Judiciary Committee, this information sheet from the FBI on radical traditionalist Catholics went through all of the FBI field offices, was widely distributed, and that we now know that the FBI relied on at least one undercover agent to produce the analysis. So they sent someone inside Catholic churches, and that the FBI proposed that its agents engage in outreach to Catholic parishes to develop sources among the clergy and church leadership to inform on Americans practicing their faith. Do you know who does this? Putin, utilizing the Russian Orthodox Church and the patriarch of that church, Kirill, who is tied to the FSB in Russia. That's not what we do in the United States of America.
They rely on distinctions that were made and suggested to the FBI by whom? I love it. The Southern Poverty Law Center, that corrupt organization that feeds information to the FBI. So take all these, from the time of the origin of the Catholic Church, take Christ, the biggest radical of all. Expunge him.
They say because there's catalyzing events in which racially motivated violent extremists and radical traditionalist Catholic adherents might have common cause, include legislation. Oh, that's radical. You mean like petitioning the government for redress of grievances or supporting legislation that could pass Congress is somehow now a radical event? Well, it is under, and I guess, state law as well. You know this is about life. This is 100% about being pro-life. This has nothing to do with being racially motivated violent extremists. It's about being someone who actually believes in life, because that's the only legislation I know of. And second, what's next? Judicial decisions might unite them. You mean decisions by a co-equal branch of the federal government that just because the executive branch doesn't like, now they're demonizing? I mean, this is why, Andy, they have a committee called the weaponization of the federal government. It's the weaponization of the federal government against the American people. And I think here they got caught targeting Catholics. But if I'm talking to any of you, and that includes me, who I'm talking, would include me, that if we adhere to our faith, we now are somehow enemies of the state.
When I first learned of the piece, I was aghast.
As you should be.
And we took steps immediately to withdraw it and remove it from FBI systems. It does not reflect FBI standards. We do not conduct investigations based on religious affiliation or practices, full stop.
Except they did, because now we know it wasn't just an idea. First of all, they started creating acronyms. RTCs, Radical Traditionalist Catholics. That should never be a acronym inside our federal government. We have a First Amendment that protects us from our government targeting us because of our religious faith. Now, the second part to that is we now know there was an informant utilized.
You can't weaponize our justice system itself to go after people who have different religious or political viewpoints. And that's exactly what is happening right now under Merrick Garland as the Attorney General, under this FBI, and we have to track it down and strike it down at the root, because it is undermining, as you said, the people's faith in our institutions themselves. And in a constitutional republic that is still an experiment on the world stage, we're only almost 247 years into this. We don't know how long a government of, by, and for the people can last, but one thing that is absolutely essential to maintain those foundations is the people's trust in the system itself. And, there's nothing more serious than undermining that.
It's usually all of us who happen to fall under their definition of traditional beliefs. And you heard Congressman Johnson. He said exactly what it means. It means pro-life in this scenario. They know. They refer to legislation and judicial decisions.
If you are a basic fundamental believing, for example, now Roman Catholic or Greek Orthodox or Episcopalian or Baptist or Presbyterian, if you actually believe in the fundamentals of your faith, you better watch out.
What they have turned us into, when you read this memo, is that if you believe in the faith that you practice, you are somehow an enemy or a potential enemy of the federal government.